So for like over 2 decades, the golden rule of the internet was just incredibly straightforward. You get your website to the top of Google.
Right. Yeah.
You play by the rules, you climb the ranks, and you just capture all the clicks. But as of today, we're looking at a stat where 64% of top companies are betting heavily that the era of the Google blue link is just completely dead.
Yeah, we are basically looking at a mass extinction event for traditional SEO. I mean, the data makes it really clear that users, they're just no longer willing to go on a digital scavenger hunt anymore.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a huge stack of sources today centered around navigating the 2026 shift marketing in the AI search era. And this draws its core insights heavily from the HubSpot 2026 State of Marketing Report.
Exactly, and it's a heavy one.
It really is. So our mission for you listening today is to dissect exactly how consumer discovery has permanently shifted.
Because?
Well, there's just so much confusion and honestly, like panic in the industry right now regarding this shift.
Oh, absolutely. Total panic.
Right. So we're going to structure this conversation around the most frequent, urgent questions we see businesses and creators asking. Because we essentially need to figure out how to survive when the old rulebook has literally been shredded.
It really has. And I think the premise we have to start with is just understanding that transition from navigation to resolution.
Okay, break that down for us.
Well, under the old model, if a user wanted to know, say, the best CRM software for a small business, or even just the best running shoes for flat feet,
Yeah.
right? The search engine basically acted like a library card catalog. It didn't actually give you the answer. It just pointed you to a massive stack of 10 links where the answer might be hiding. So the burden of reading all those pages, comparing them, and synthesizing the truth, that fell entirely on the human user.
Which brings up the first major FAQ we hear constantly, which is what actually replaces that card catalog?
AI answer engines.
Yeah.
So platforms like Perplexity, Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT.
Right.
Consumers are no longer typing in these fragmented keywords. They're typing complex conversational questions into these engines. And the AI acts like a genius research assistant.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it instantly reads all the relevant books in the library, synthesizes the conflicting information, and just hands the user a single, perfectly summarized paragraph containing the definitive answer.
The implications of that are just staggering for anyone trying to attract an audience, though.
Huh.
I mean, if the user never clicks a link because the AI gives them the answer directly on the search page, the core challenge completely flips.
Exactly. The goal is no longer, how do we rank on the first page?
Right. It's like, how do we get the AI to pick our specific content to use in its summary?
That is the central problem of the 2026 shift, hands down. If you are not the cited source in the AI's response, your digital footprint effectively does not exist for that user.
Wow. Okay, so FAQ number 2. If we aren't just stuffing keywords into blog post headers anymore, what are the actual mechanics of getting an AI to pick our content? Because the HubSpot report outlines this entirely new alphabet soup of strategies.
Yeah, the acronyms are everywhere.
Right, starting with AEO, or Answer Engine Optimization. So the sources define this as structuring data so AI can easily ingest it. But let's break down the mechanics for a second. Like, if I run a local bakery, what does bad AEO look like compared to good AEO?
Okay, so bad AEO is relying on flowery, narrative-driven marketing copy to convey basic facts. Like, if your bakery's website says, we offer artisanal, cloud-spiced pastries kissed by the morning sun, available when the rooster crows.
I mean, a human might love that.
Right. A human finds it charming, but a large language model finds it utterly confusing.
Yeah.
LLMs are basically mathematical prediction engines looking for concrete data points.
Like,
Feeding that poetic sentence to an AI is literally like trying to feed a poem to a calculator.
it just cannot parse the variables.
Yeah, precisely. Good AEO requires stripping away the ambiguity for the machine. So it means implementing clean schema markup in your website's code. It means using explicit bulleted lists and clear Q&A formats directly on the page.
Like, what are the bakery hours? 8 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Exactly. Do we offer gluten-free bread? Yes.
Right.
You have to present your core facts and pricing so cleanly that an AI can instantly grab them with zero friction.
Okay, that makes total sense, and that leads directly into the second concept the report introduces, which is GEO, or Generative Engine Optimization.
Right.
So AEO makes the data easy to read, but GEO is the strategy of ensuring your brand actually appears within the text that the AI generates. But I have to ask, how do you actually manipulate a black box algorithm into generating your brand name organically? That sounds like trying to force a slot machine to hit the jackpot.
Well, it's not really about manipulation, you know. It's about semantic density and providing unique value. So AI models prioritize what is known as information gain.
Information gain.
Okay. Yeah. If your website just regurgitates the same 10 tips for baking bread that literally every other website has, the AI has no mathematical incentive to cite you. You offer zero new information.
Oh, wow. So you're just noise.
Exactly. GEO requires you to publish original, quotable statistics, proprietary research, or unique frameworks that the AI absolutely needs to use in order to provide a complete answer. You force the AI's hand by being the sole originator of a highly relevant fact.
You essentially have to become the primary source rather than the aggregator. So if the AI wants to cite the stat, it has no choice but to mention the brand that created it.
That is the most reliable mechanism for GEO. But it relies heavily on where the AI is actually looking, which brings us to the most complex strategy in the report, which is SEVEO.
Right, search everywhere optimization. Let's pause on SEVEO because this concept requires some serious scrutiny.
Oh, for sure.
The sources state that SEISO recognizes AI models. Don't just read standard websites. They build their knowledge base by scraping the entire digital ecosystem. Social media, podcasts, review forums, video transcripts, literally everything.
Yeah, they leave no stone unturned.
But the directive here is that businesses need to build a brand presence in every single place AI pulls its data from. And honestly, I have to push back on the feasibility of this for a second.
Okay, go for it.
I can control my website's schema markup, but I cannot control what someone says about my business on a random Reddit thread, or what two people debate on a niche podcast. Expecting any team, let alone a small business, to optimize the entire internet feels kind of impossible.
Well, it is impossible to control, which is why the strategy requires a shift from control to influence.
Influence, okay.
Right, you have to understand why AI is scraping all these unstructured platforms in the first place. It is looking for consensus. AI does not respect the artificial borders of your website.
So it doesn't care what I say about myself.
Exactly. It doesn't care that you have a beautifully optimized AEO-compliant landing page if the rest of the internet is saying your product is terrible. AI builds this holistic, three-dimensional picture of a brand based on its entire digital footprint.
It's acting like an incredibly thorough investigative journalist then. Like, it reads the official press release, but then it goes and interviews the former employees and the disgruntled customers to find the actual truth.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. And this is a good pivot to FAQ3, which is how a brand actually builds trust with an AI. In the old days of traditional SEO, authority was largely driven by backlinks.
Right, a sheer numbers game of how many other websites link to yours.
Right, but the HubSpot report highlights a massive departure from that model. Traditional backlinks are rapidly losing their importance. Instead, brand mentions from credible sources are taking over.
Wait, really? So I don't need an actual hyperlink pointing to my site for the algorithm to give me credit?
You do not. The AI systems use natural language processing to evaluate the frequency and the sentiment of these mentions across the web. If highly credible voices or authoritative publications are consistently mentioning your brand in a positive context, say on a podcast or a forum, the AI registers that sentiment.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, the ultimate goal, as defined by the sources, is to become the absolute source of truth in the eyes of the AI. If the AI's consensus mechanism determines you are the ultimate authority, it will prioritize your information over a competitor who simply has better website code.
Which introduces an incredible tension for anyone creating content. Because the text points out that to become the source of truth, you have to create dual audience content.
Yes, dual audience is the key phrase there.
You are no longer just writing to persuade a human buyer. You're simultaneously writing to educate an algorithmic parser. Like, if the human loves your witty storytelling, but the LLM cannot figure out what product you're actually selling because your data structure is a mess, the AI won't recommend you.
It is a really delicate balancing act. You have to integrate engaging human narratives with crisp, machine-readable data structures. You're essentially serving two masters who speak entirely different languages.
Man, okay, so moving from the theory to the reality check here for FAQ4. The HubSpot data reveals a pretty significant gap in how businesses are handling this.
Yeah, the numbers are telling.
While 40.6% of marketers say they're actively updating their strategies to prepare for AI search, 48.57% are only using AI occasionally and mostly just to draft personalized emails.
Right, which is just scratching the surface.
Exactly. There is a massive gap between knowing a tidal wave is coming and actually building a boat. So for the listener trying to build that boat today, what are the immediate actionable steps?
So the sources highlight 3 mandatory steps to bridge that gap. Step 1 is adapting to conversational queries. We touched on this earlier, but the execution requires a total content overhaul. You have to audit your existing content and rewrite it to answer natural, long-form human questions.
So less keyword stuffing, more actual answering.
Exactly. Instead of an article titled, Best CRM 2024, you need content structured around questions like, what is the best CRM for a 10-person remote team trying to automate client onboarding? You have to mirror the extreme specificity of the user's prompt to the AI.
You essentially have to talk to the machine the exact way the human talks to the machine. The closer your content matches the natural language of the prompt, the easier it is for the AI to connect the dots.
Spot on. And then step 2 takes that concept even further, which is embracing multimodal content.
Now, this detail from the report really changes the scope of what search optimization means for me, because we all kind of default to thinking of search as a strictly text-based activity, right? Like typing on a keyboard.
Right, but that text bias is a massive vulnerability right now. The AI search era is multimodal, meaning these engines process multiple types of inputs simultaneously. The report heavily emphasizes the urgent need to support voice search and visual search. Users are speaking complex questions to their devices while driving, or they're pointing their smartphone cameras at a broken lawnmower engine and asking the AI, what is this part? And how do I fix it?
Oh, wow. So if a hardware brand's instructional content is entirely locked up in, like, text-based PDFs, they are completely invisible to a growing segment of user behavior.
Completely invisible.
They need visual content where the frames of the video and the audio transcript match the exact problem the user's camera is looking at. You literally have to make sure your products can be recognized by a camera lens.
Which requires ensuring your visual assets are tagged, your video transcripts are clean, and your image metadata is AEO optimized.
Yeah.
And then step 3 in the report is hyper-personalization. Once the AI finds you, how do you actually interact with the user? This goes way beyond just inserting a first name into an email template.
Yeah, we're way past that.
It involves using AI to analyze deep customer behavioral data to deliver incredibly precise individual-level content at scale. The systems can dynamically alter the content a specific user sees based on their past interactions and predictive needs.
Okay, but let's look at this critically for a second for our final FAQ. Doing all of this, restructuring websites for AEO, inventing original IP for GEO, monitoring the entire internet for SEVEO, producing multimodal videos, and hyper-personalizing every interaction. I mean, that is a recipe for operational collapse.
Oh, absolutely.
The workload is physically impossible for a standard human team. Now, the report mentions tools like HubSpot Breeze AI as a solution. But if we rely on a piece of software to do the AEO formatting, the audience segmentation, and the hyper-personalization, aren't we just automating our way to average?
That's a fair concern.
Like, if everyone uses tools like Breeze to optimize for the exact same LLMs, don't we risk creating a sea of just perfectly optimized generic AI sludge?
That is the primary risk if businesses misunderstand the tool's purpose. The value of tools like HubSpot Breeze AI, according to the sources, is not to generate your core ideas.
Okay.
Its utility lies in tackling that dual audience problem we talked about. It acts as a structural translator. It understands the formatting, the schema markup, and the mathematical data structures that AI search engines crave, and it builds those into the content creation process automatically.
Got it. So it basically sits between the messy human creativity and the rigid requirements of the algorithm. It handles the syntax so the human can focus on the substance.
Exactly the distinction that needs to be made. If your underlying idea lacks original insight, the tool just makes your mediocre idea highly visible to an algorithm that will eventually penalize you for lacking information gain anyway. But if you have a brilliant strategy, tools like Breeze AI tackle the heavy lifting of audience segmentation, maintaining database accuracy, and translating your human creativity into machine authority. By automating the data-heavy tasks, it saves the massive amounts of time that would otherwise be spent manually trying to appease the algorithm.
So the tool doesn't replace the marketer. It really just replaces the tedious mechanics of formatting for a robot.
The sources are very clear on this human element. The goal of AI taking over routine tasks is to free up humans to return to what they do best, focusing purely on strategy, empathy, and original creativity.
Which is what we actually want to be doing anyway.
Exactly. Adapting to AI-driven search and utilizing these translation tools is no longer an optional upgrade. It is pure survival in a landscape where the blue links are basically gone.
To summarize the mission we set out on today, the 2026 AI shift means moving entirely past fragmented keywords. We are entering an era of deep multimodal connections where your brand has to project such consistent, high-quality information across the entire internet that the AI has no choice but to declare you the ultimate source of truth.
Oh, quickly said.
And as we wrap up today's deep dives, I want to leave you, the listener, with one final thought to ponder that builds on the collision of these new concepts. We discussed SEVEO, how AI is scraping the entire digital landscape, including podcasts and video transcripts, to determine your brand's authority.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed multimodal search, meaning AI is actively processing voice and visual data, not just reading text. So if AI is eventually listening to every audio interview you give and watching every video you post to determine if you are a credible source,
Yeah.
what happens when AI search engines start evaluating the literal tone of voice your company uses, or the aesthetic mood and emotional resonance of your visual content?
Oh, that's a wild thought.
Right. If the AI becomes the ultimate genius assistant, judging credibility, are we about to enter an era where we have to perform emotional optimization for an algorithm? Like, are we going to have to worry about whether a machine correctly interprets our brand's vibe?
That is definitely something to think about.
Something to carefully consider as we navigate the shift to 2026. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.